So when I was a teenager, I used to read all the time. Like, I just loved reading science fiction books all the time. And then I stopped because there was a talk once about how you shouldn't be reading books if you're not reading your Watchtower and Awake. And I wasn't reading the Watchtower and Awake because they're boring. So I stopped reading other books, but I never did start reading the Watchtower and Awake, even though my idea was that I would. And so I just stopped reading for quite some time, and it was kind of sad. But a couple years ago, maybe 5 years ago, I really started getting back into reading books again because that's something that I love to read. And so reading really helped me get out of Jehovah's Witnesses. And so I'm going to share some of these books and how they helped me. So the first book I'll start with, and I actually couldn't find my physical copy, is 1984 by George Orwell. This is Animal Farm. It's just representation because I couldn't find my actual book. But 1984, I actually read that years ago, and I was still a witness. And it made me really uncomfortable because the similarities between how the world in 1984 works and how Jehovah's Witnesses work are striking, to say the least. This whole, how like Julia was, she just didn't even think she was lying about who she was. She just had to do what she was told to survive, and that's just how life works. And that's kind of how it is in Jehovah's Witnesses. You can't be yourself, right? You have to put on this show of, yes, I am a good Jehovah's Witness, and you can't talk about things you like video games maybe, because someone might be stumbled by a video game, and that would be bad. So when I read that kind of, even though I was a witness, it made me a little uncomfortable because I could kind of see the connection there between what that book was portraying and, my religion. This book I'm going to show you it's Everydata. So this book I actually read for work, and I found it super, super, super interesting. It's a great book. It talks about how statistics works, but it really dumbs it down for normal people like me, and how advertisers use statistics to kind of manipulate facts sometimes and lead people to believe things that aren't true. It kind of made me realize how, Watchtower never quotes its sources. You can't verify the data it's presented. It could be incredibly skewed, and we have no way of knowing. And that's kind of what this book talks about, is how to verify your sources, how to make sure the data you're reading is unskewed. It really helps with that critical thinking that's so important for you to get out of a situation like Jehovah's Witnesses, or any cult really, whether it's Jehovah's Witnesses, a political cult like Trump followers, or a business cult like, I don't know, essential oil multi-level marketing schemes, I guess. But this really helps with the critical thinking. So the next book I want to talk about is Empire of Imagination. So this is a book about Gary Gygax. That's the guy who made Dungeons and Dragons. A lot of people don't know he was a Jehovah's Witness, and he was more or less forced out of the religion when Dungeons and Dragons became involved in the Satanic Panic. The official reason is that he was smoking, but a lot of witnesses were smoking back then. The real reason is he was developing this game and wouldn't stop because he wouldn't obey Jehovah's Witnesses. So this book I read because I started playing Dungeons and Dragons when I was still a Jehovah's Witness. As you can tell by my background here, I'm a little bit of a gaming nerd. So I started playing Dungeons and Dragons when I was a Jehovah's Witness, and that's like forbidden. Witnesses are super anti-Dungeons and Dragons. There's actually a whole Watchtower article you can look up that talks about how evil and terrible Dungeons and Dragons is. I don't remember which one it is, but it's out there on their website. If you look up Dungeons and Dragons, you can find it. So for a long, long time, I wanted to play this game so bad that I wouldn't do it because, it's this evil, terrible, spiritual game. So I finally played it. It had nothing to do with spiritism. Like, it's just silly stories that you make together. It's a lot of fun. And I really enjoyed Dungeons and Dragons. And he was able to build this incredibly successful game despite getting screwed over by everything, not even just Jehovah's Witnesses. It's kind of an inspiration to me. A book I'd highly recommend for anyone who's into Dungeons and Dragons, or Jehovah's Witnesses even, to see what someone's life could be like. I don't know if I'm going to include this bit in the video, but I even got this tattoo here. Partially to honor Gary Gygax and how, to remind myself that he had a life outside of Jehovah's Witnesses, so I can too. Next book I'm going to talk about is this hefty book, A Short History of Nearly Everything. This book is awesome. So what I love about it is it goes through and really shows how science, or how scientists rather, come to their conclusions about things. It's a hefty book, as you can see. It's not a small book. It's pretty deep. Awesome book to read, though. One of the things that really kind of, it gave me the sense that, the Earth has been here for billions of years, going to be here for billions more. Things like the flood. It talks a little bit about, it doesn't directly talk about Noah's flood, but it talks about this idea of like water levels and how ridiculous it would be to think that, well, we know that even if all the ice caps and everything in the entire world melted and came right down onto Earth, there wouldn't be enough water. So we don't know where that water went. And that question really kind of got stuck in my head of like, wait, could Noah's Ark not have been real? Obviously now I know it's not real, but at the time it really kind of caused a crisis for me a little bit. And the conclusion I came to is simply that the first 11 chapters of Genesis aren't literal. And that worked for me for a while, but it kind of started chipping away my, that's first of all not what Jehovah's Witnesses teach. They teach that the creation account is very literal, except for where it isn't. But then that kind of started chipping away, like, well, if that's not literal and that's not reliable, what else in the Bible isn't reliable? So this book had a huge impact on me, kind of starting to doubt the Bible's history. So it's a great book, actually. It talks all about science, and I love it. The next book I'm going to talk about, this is also the last one I read while I was still a witness, is How to Invent Everything by Ryan North. The premise is that you're in a time machine and you crash landed at some point in history and you have to reinvent all technology we have today. And this is how to do that. How to start from nothing and rebuild everything. So one of the big takeaways I had from this book was everything kind of slowly developed, and we have so much evidence that for thousands and thousands and thousands of years we've been here slowly building technologies. Even like language has taken so long to develop. It wasn't one tower where God decided, okay, here's the languages, poof, you're good. It was a slow, gradual build-up. And so this book really, it helped me appreciate that, we can't just make up stories about history to suit our narrative. We really have to look at what the evidence is. This one I read while I was a witness, but almost out. This is actually the book that really got me out of Jehovah's Witnesses, kind of put the nail in the coffin. That's Crisis of Conscience by Raymond Franz. Anyone who has ever had anything to do with Jehovah's Witnesses should read this book. It was actually written by a governing body member of Jehovah's Witnesses, and the 2-second synopsis is, it explains why he left the religion. And he does a very good job of showing with evidence some of the problems within the Watchtower organization. But this guy, he was on the governing body. He was on top. So he could see everything in the organization. What's really great about this book is if you're looking to question your beliefs as a Jehovah's Witness, but you're not ready yet to question the existence of God or even Christianity, this is a great book to read then, because he doesn't challenge those assumptions, but he does challenge your assumptions about Jehovah's Witnesses. So highly, highly recommended. If you have anyone anywhere who has anything to do with Jehovah's Witnesses, get him a copy of this. You can download it online for free, actually. friendsofrayfranz.com. 10 stars, would read again. The last book I'm going to talk about today is Combating Cult Mind Control by Stephen Hassan. This book is, I read this after I left Jehovah's Witnesses, and this has helped me more than any other book, I think. It's not about Jehovah's Witnesses, but when you read it, it seems like it is, because he explains exactly how Jehovah's Witnesses operate. He talks about how, like, going out and recruiting members isn't about recruiting members. It's about keeping the members loyal and making them realize, or making them feel that anyone outside the cult is evil and bad. And even when I was a witness, an elder I talked to even admitted that to me, that that's why witnesses go out in service. It's not about recruiting, it's about keeping members loyal. And that's exactly what cults do. Not just Jehovah's Witnesses, other cults do that. And he breaks down exactly how they operate on here. incredibly smart man. He escaped the Moonies himself and wrote about his experience quite a bit in here too. Every single person in the world should read this book. Like, this is the number one book I would recommend for anyone. So those are just some of the books that, reading them, really helped me kind of analyze my own thinking and realize that uncomfortable situation, that cognitive dissonance, that I was giving my own beliefs a pass, but other people's beliefs maybe I wasn't as much, even when the evidence supported things that I didn't believe. It kind of put me in an uncomfortable situation, and now I feel much better because I trust evidence, I trust science, and I don't have to try to defend my beliefs from facts. I can just accept reality for what it is. It's awesome.